Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Today is Monday, April the 4th. A lot of things to kind of talk about coming to this week with, of course, the red folder news events. Markets over the weekend, we had some news as well. Let me actually make sure everything is good. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Today is April the 6th. It's a Monday today. As I mentioned, we did have some news over the weekend. The main thing, of course, is the next few days with the war peace talks. Overall, the markets end up actually bouncing nicely on Friday. We're going to talk about coming into this week if we're going to look for a potential kind of fade or if this is going to be a true rally and we're going to push back towards the upside. Before we do that, what is up, everyone? Good morning. What's up? What's up? Good morning, B Roots. Good morning, P1. Good morning, Victor, Maria, Sakis, Cody, Maria, Deuce, The Grand, Marcus, Robert, Gerald, Lamit. Good morning, Cinna. Good morning, 50, Cosmic. Good morning, Juan, Andy. Yeah, happy Easter as well to everyone that's celebrating today. The markets are open. Good morning, Deuce, Knight. Yeah, with that being said, let's pull up the economic calendar. So as you can see here, coming into market open, we do have some red folder news events. The main thing, of course, today is going to be the ISM services. That is at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Trump is going to be speaking later today here as well. So that is something to keep in mind. Oops, let's see. Right side of the screen, we can see the pre-market data. Perfect. Okay, so as you can see here, the major red folder news events coming into market open here. As I mentioned, ISM, and then Trump is speaking later into the day. So that's the main thing to keep in mind. We do have the ongoing war, of course. We are coming to peace talks. So potentially we can see an end of the war fairly soon here within the next few days. As I mentioned, things can change, but I'd say we are coming to an end fairly soon, sooner than later. So we'll have President Trump speaking later today. We'll have Iran speaking as well. And we will be coming to a decision fairly soon here, or at least the next potential move. As for tomorrow, no red folder news events. Wednesday, we do have the FOMC minutes. And then Thursday, we have core PCE price index along with the final GDP. And then we also have unemployment. And then on Friday, we have core CPI along with the year over year as well. And of course, we do have the prelim consumer sentiment. So this is what we have for the economic calendar coming into this week. As I mentioned, the main thing, of course, here is going to be today, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Trump speaking. Of course, the ongoing war news is going to be a lot more important than everything else. FOMC minutes later into the week, fairly important. Core PCE, along with the final GDP numbers, and then, of course, CPI on Friday. But the main thing is the ongoing war that we do have. So we'll have some more information fairly soon here. It does seem like the markets is rallying. So as you can see here, for the SPY and QQQ, let's first go on to this. So we're on the weekly chart here on the SPY chart. Let's kind of go over what to look for here on the higher time frame. So coming into last week, so as you can see here, we were down about 5 weeks in a row. So last week we're expecting some sort of relief bounce offer 630. Nice buyers stepping in here, offer 630, printed in a nice kind of bullish candle here on the weekly time frame. So majority of the times, whenever you have like 5 to 6 red weeks in a row, we are going to get some sort of relief bounce here on the SPY. Now you can see we're kind of having this nice relief bounce, kind of reclaiming back above this 650 here on the higher time frames. So coming into market open and moving forward on the SPY chart, you can definitely see we're still leaning more towards the downside here on the overall markets after breaking outside this period of consolidation. So even then, and now look at the markets, we still could get either one of two things, right? A potential bounce all the way back up and towards that 680, which was that original area of consolidation before we broke down. And of course, before we had that war news. So really, this is the higher time frame key level. That 680 potential kind of break, pop, sorry, and then fade back towards the downside. If we get some bad bearish news that comes in, we could see a flip underneath that 650, and we could still see a push back down and towards that 630 and below. So if we're looking for some upside, we have room back up and towards that 680. This is where that pre-war news that we had, this is the original consolidation before that breakdown. We can see him rally back up and towards that 680 and a fade. If the markets do want to show a little bit more weakness coming to this week, back underneath that 650, we can see a move back down and towards that 630 here. So this is what we have on the weekly time frame. The way I'm flipping bullish, at least bullish tone on the weekly time frame, is going to be the break back above really the 680. So let's say, for example, now we're breaking back above. We could see a short-term bounce, as I mentioned, back up and towards that 680. Right, so the daily time frame, we can see that push back up and towards this key area. The way I'm gonna flip a lot more bullish, and the sentiment really is gonna change for me, if we print in a huge weekly candle and we break back above the 680 with conviction, then we could see a push right back up and towards that all-time highs. Right now, we still have oil high levels, right? Overall markets, right? Bearish sentiment, at least last week, flipped a little bit more bullish. And of course, with the war coming to an end soon, that would push us back up and towards that 680 general area. But if we can break back above that 680, we could see a potential push back up and towards 700. But currently, with the overall market, as I mentioned, 650 along with that 680 is going to be key. So that's what I have on the weekly time frame. If I go back onto the daily time frame, the key levels that I have marked out coming into market open is going to be our 660, which is our last week's lows, and then of course the next levels towards the upside all the way back up and towards that 676. So as you can see, coming to this week, the key level is at 660. Of course, we have that 650 area marked out here as well. So this is going to be my line in the sand for the SPY. If we can break back above that 660, break back above our last week's highs as well, we could see a potential rally back up and towards that 670, along with really the area that we broke down from, as I mentioned earlier, which was that original consolidation, and then essentially the original war news that we had, which was that 676. So we can see a rally back up and towards that 680 on the daily chart. If we break back underneath that 650, which as you can see, we have multiple touches here. Price was defending this level last week. Once it broke back above, nice push higher, gapped underneath it, but immediate buyer stepped in. So 650 is going to be key. But if we do break back underneath that 650, then intraday, we can look for some more downside underneath that 650 and a potential trade down in towards that 640 along with that 630 here on the higher time frame. So really, the main levels coming to this week, as I mentioned, we have that 660 along with that 650 here on the higher time frames, which is going to be key. So coming into now the lower time frames, let's just look at the SPY here on the hourly chart. Currently seeing some buyers step in here, a push up in towards that previous day highs, along with that Wednesday's high here as well. So we do have multiple touches off this 660 coming into market open. So coming into today, we're going to keep an eye out really just off our previous day highs. If you can price get above that previous day highs, 658, a trade back up and towards that 660, along with potentially that news candle high, which was that original war news, right? This is when we had that war ending news. This was a couple weeks ago. Price had a nice push towards upside, but of course we end up fading lower. So similar thing, if the war does come to an end, or it's going to come to an end very soon with the peace talks, right, we can see a trade back up and towards that 660 here on the SPY. Of course, if we reject off this level, or something else comes in, or there's any surprise news events that we have with the peace talks, then we can see a trade back down in towards, now it's going to be that previous day lows and potentially below here as well. Other levels, let me actually just mark this out. Previous day low here on the SPY. So key level coming to market open, keep an eye out on our 658 here on the SPY. As for the ES, very similar thing here. Key levels that I have coming into market open that I'm going to keep an eye out on. Previous day highs here, multiple touches. which is that 6640 here on the ES. If we can break above, hold above that 6640, potential trade up in towards our 6680 along with that news candle high 6740. Of course, if we see some weaker price action or any sort of bearish news that does come in, potential fade off here is in play for a push back down in towards, now it's going to be that pre-market lows, previous day lows, and potentially this higher time frame key area 6500. So that's what we have on the ES coming into market open. Now let's go on to the QQQ. As you can see, Qs is showing a little bit more strength coming into market open, but let's go into the Qs. Very similar thing here based off of the weekly time frame. So the key levels that we have marked out on the weekly time frame, 590. We had this level here marked out as well, which was that 560, along with that retest all the way down in towards that 540. So the best retest, of course, on the higher time frames is that 540 retest. SPY, what we have is room down in towards that 602, that 600 key level. So this is really my key area here on the higher time frames. But as you can see, we're seeing some buyers step in on the QQQ along with the SPY after having this nice downtrend to start off the year. So as I mentioned, we're expecting some sort of relief bounce on the Qs, and now you can see some buyers are stepping in. So this is the period of consolidation that we had originally, which was that 590 along with that 610. So we consolidated here, and then we had that original drop towards the downside. So now as you can see, Qs breaking underneath this level, coming back down into key levels of support. And now you can see pretty strong buyers, as I mentioned last week. If you're looking at this on the weekly time frame, pretty big lower wick printing, and now you can see fairly bullish candle close on the weekly time frame. So looking at the QQQ moving forward, the key level is going to be this period of consolidation, 590s. If we can break back above, have a strong weekly candle close, we can see a push back up in towards this period of consolidation and this 620 here. If we reject off the bottom, then we could see this nice potential break and retest on the weekly time frame towards the downside right off this key level of support, now turn into resistance. If we can break back above that 590, as I mentioned, that's going to be key. So let's go back onto the daily chart. If we're looking at the Qs coming into this week, really the main levels that I have marked out on the Qs, currently we have our last week's highs, which is going to be key, but really the main level that we have marked out is going to be that 590. You can see multiple touches here right off our key level, which is that 590 that turned into resistance. And you can see price had that nice break and retest towards the downside. So for the Qs moving forward here, if we can flip back above this 590, we can see a potential trade back up and towards our 600, along with the top of the range, which would be that 615. If we reject off that 590, then we could see this push right back towards the downside, 570, along with that 560. So just based off technicals, this is going to be the key area coming into market open and coming to this week here on the QQQ. As I mentioned, and of course, SPY, we have our other key levels here as well. But really the line in the sand is going to be that 590, right? Technically, we are still bearish here. You were building those lower highs, but we could very much well flip above, especially if we do have those peace talks and the war does come to an end. We can see a flip on the overall markets back above that 590 for a push back up and towards that 615. But if we do reject off this level, we could see a trade up into it, huge rejection, and see that next leg towards the downside. So 595 / your 590 is going to be key coming into market open here. Key levels that I do have marked out coming to this week is going to be that 585. This is what we have marked out, previous day highs along with our last week's highs. Coming to market open, if we see a flip back above, we can see this continuation up and towards that 596 for continuation higher. If we do want to reject off this level, get back underneath that previous day highs, we can see this trade back down in towards that 580 along with that 576 here, previous day lows on the higher time frame. So coming to market open, right? We're going to keep an eye out on that 588. We do have some red folder news, plus we have Trump speaking later into the day. Of course, that is going to be key. And that's really going to be the major red folder news event that the market is waiting for. A trade back towards the upside, you can see this news candle high. All right, for the NQ, fairly similar thing here. The key levels that we have coming into this week, what we're going to have marked out is that 23,800. Nice buyers kind of stepped in off this key level here on Friday. Coming into market open here today, multiple touches here. If we do want to see a trade higher, break back above, hold above, potential room back up and towards that news candle high. If we do reject off this area, get underneath that previous day highs, we can see a trade back down in towards that previous day lows, which happens to be that 23,800. So this is what I have for the ES and NQ coming into market open and the major indices. Now, with that being said, let's hop on to some other tickers here. We'll start off on the Semiconductor ETF. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over, you guys can now drop them in the chat. Let me grab some water here. Yeah, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over here now, you guys can drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free watch list, that of course is in the description below. It's also our 1-year anniversary. So if you guys are interested in joining the accelerator, there is a wait list that we have coming out fairly soon. So you can join that. That is also in the description as well. Let's see. How do you determine the height of the boxes? If you go onto the free watch list, it'll send you a link to my free Telegram, and I have it pinned on the top, which is just a video on showing exactly how I drop my key levels. Okay, let's go on to the SMH. What do you mainly trade? Yeah, I usually trade weekly, so I'll trade Friday's expirations. If I'm on a Monday, sometimes I'll choose Wednesday's expirations here as well. I'll try and stay away from zeros unless it's Friday, but majority of the times I'm always trading either Wednesdays or Fridays. Okay, let's go on to the SMH. So let's kind of talk about this here on the higher time frames. As you can see, the overall market's printing in a fairly nice weekly bullish candle here. So after hitting all-time highs, we're now coming back down into key areas, which is this previous level of resistance. If you just draw out this general area, previous level of resistance, now we like to see it turn into support. And as you can see here on the weekly time frame, push lower here, but the weekly candle closed fairly bullish. So that's why, especially on the semiconductors, a lot of names have been bouncing nicely. NVIDIA, AMD, a couple other semis, Intel bouncing nicely, a lot of memory names leading back towards the upside here as well. So the one that's still maintaining structure, at least fairly nicely here on the weekly time frame, of course, is the semiconductor ETFs. The SPY and Qs have a little bit of a bigger push towards the downside. Ultimately, those are still bullish on the weekly time frame, but the most bullish the most bullish indice is, of course, the semiconductor ETF. And as you can see, perfect, really break and retest here on the weekly time frame right off that 370. So to me here on the SMH, right, we can see very much well a push back up and towards, right, if the SPY and Qs wants to see a bounce, we can see a push back up and towards the all-time highs here on the SMH, right? Higher lows are still very much being built. If you're to draw this general trend line here as well, you can see, right, buyers stepping exactly where they're supposed to. We can see a push back up and towards that 430. If we kind of reject off this period of consolidation where you can see you have multiple lower wicks, right off this 400, we can see a push or right back inside this kind of general area of consolidation if we reject off this 400. But if we can have a strong candle close back above, we're going to see this push back up and towards our all-time high. So for the SMH, that's what we have on the weekly time frame. If you go back onto the daily chart, as you can see here, multiple touches. If you just draw this general area or this box, multiple touches, break back above this level, as I mentioned, that 400 along with that 404. You can see a push back up and towards our all-time highs. If we reject off this area, we're just going to come right back down in between the middle of the range that we have, which is this period of consolidation. So as I mentioned, strong buyers that stepped in last week, strong daily candle close here as well. If we're looking at the hourly time frame, key levels that we just have marked out is that 402.50. We have our 387.50 along with the key level support 370. So if you do want to see some upside, bounce play here off the middle of the range, 387, or of course longs above our 402. If we reject off this area, push right back down in towards that 387, or now we're going to be right back inside the range if we get back underneath this 390. So this is what we have on the semiconductor ETFs. If we're looking at the IWM, a lot of consolidation here as well. So we will be looking for the break above 250 if you want to see any sort of continuation higher. Rejection here is a push right back down in towards that 247. All right, now let's go on to some of the tech names that we do have coming into market open here, starting off with Tesla. If you guys do have any charts, as I mentioned, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. And of course, if you guys haven't joined the free watch list, that is in the description below. Okay. Let's first talk about Tesla. So Tesla here, if we're looking at this from a weekly perspective, as you can see, we've really been in a downtrend ever since we started off the year, and ever since we hit this all-time highs. So this was a key area that we hit, all-time highs. Nice kind of trade towards the downside. Now we're essentially right back in the area that it broke out from. So as you can see, this is the original area of consolidation here on Tesla. This is when we consolidated, flat top break, pushed towards our all-time highs area. So now for Tesla, right back down in towards that 360. This is where I'd like to see buyers step in. Right, we could see a trade down in towards that 340, right, that original consolidation, and still push back up and towards the upside, right? Just based off the weekly time frame and even the monthly time frame, this is exactly where I'd like to see buyers step in, right? It can kind of overshoot, right? We can print in a lower wick here on the higher time frame. All right, we should be back here. Can you guys type in the chat if we're good, if you guys can hear me? If there is any sort of lag on the stream, you guys can always refresh and it should be all good. We're good. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so for Tesla coming into this week and moving forward, as I mentioned, I would like to see some sort of buyers kind of step in off this general area that's on the weekly time frame. If you're looking at the daily time frame, this one's still very much in a clear downtrend. Ended up rejecting off our key areas, which happened to be that 380 on the higher time frame. So as you can see, support, multiple touches, kind of wicked above 2 weeks ago, but then last week came up into that 380. Nice sharp rejection and continuation towards the upside. So as you can see right here, 380, nice rejection off this level. That is going to be the line in the sand moving forward here as well. So if we go back onto the hourly time frame here for Tesla, what we have marked out is that 384. Other levels that we have marked out here is that 375 all the way down in towards that 350. So for Tesla, we've bounced here, we've bounced again. We have some sort of mini bounce here off that 360 general area. What I would like to see on Tesla is one of two things. Number one, if we want to see buyers step in, it's going to have to be off our key level of support, really this 360 general area here on the higher time frames for a pushback towards the upside. Right, so I'd either like to see the bounce off support, or of course now it's going to be the reclaim back above that 370. My favorite, of course, is going to be the trade back above that 380 here on the higher time frames, at least for the other levels that we have coming into market open. Now what we can just mark out is really that previous day highs, at least for today here for Tesla. Overall markets bouncing nicely on Friday compared to Tesla, which is showing a little bit more relative weakness. Broke underneath key levels. We also had delivery numbers on Friday. Sorry, this was on Thursday that dropped this towards the downside. So for Tesla, right, key levels moving forward, really we can just have marked out that previous day lows along with that previous day highs. If we do want to see some upside, right, gonna have to be above that 370 for continuation higher. Shorts, of course, are in play here underneath that 360. Opening up right in between the middle of the range. Let's just be a little bit more patient. We can mark out that opening range candle here as well. But based off Tesla, we're gonna be a little bit more patient today, right? If the markets do want to drop, right, and potentially reverse off that higher time frame key level, Tesla is something we can keep an eye out for, just because we had some delivery numbers showing a little bit more weakness compared to the overall markets. So we can keep an eye out for some downside for potential trade back down in towards that 360 and below here if the market does want to drop. If we look at Nvidia here, this one is showing a little bit more strength. Nice kind of bounce off key levels of support here along with AMD. But as you can see for as you can see here for Nvidia, nice buyers stepping in right off our key level support. So as you can see, nice rally towards the upside. We've just been consolidating here on Nvidia for the better part of the past half a year, ever since summertime of last year. Right, we've just been consolidating really in between this general area. Came down last week in towards our key levels of support. We're expecting some buyers to step in off this level. Nice kind of lower wick. Strong weekly candle close here as well, with nice buyers stepping in right back up and towards that 180. So nice buyers stepping in here on Nvidia. Now the top of the range that we do have is our 190. So as you can see right here, right, a lot of consolidation. This is essentially equilibrium. Nice buyers stepping in here off support. We can see now, if the market does want to flip, a potential trade back up and towards that 190 here, which is our top of the range. So for Nvidia, if we look at this on the daily time frame, key levels that we can just have drawn out is this overall box. You can see low of the box broke underneath, but nice reclaim. Now we can see a potential trade back up and towards essentially the middle of the range, 180. That is a key area for Nvidia. And of course, if we can show some stronger price action, to trade back up and towards this 190 on the higher time frame. So let's go into the hourly time frame. The key levels, at least, that we have marked out coming into today. What we have marked out is going to be that last week's highs, 177. And then, of course, that 171 here, which was that news candle low. Currently coming to market open, we are showing some buyers stepping in here above our previous day highs. So as you can see right here, consolidation, right, breaking above our previous day highs here in the pre-market, along with our Wednesday's highs. What I'd like to see coming to market open here is the reaction that we have off our 177.50. If we can see buyers step in, potential trade up and towards our previous day highs, pre-market highs here and above. So we'll keep an eye out on Nvidia. This is one of the main things that we're keeping an eye out for coming into market open, the break and retest above our previous day highs. If we reject off this area, break back underneath, we can see a potential move back down in towards our 176.50. That is only going to be underneath that 177. But overall, this one above our previous day highs, very similar setup to the overall markets. This one showing a little bit more strength here as well. If we can get above our previous day highs, hold above that level, we can see a potential move up and towards our pre-market highs, along with that 181, which is a higher time frame key level here as well. All right, let's go on to AMD. Let's take a look at this one here on the daily chart. So as you can see here on AMD, if we mark out this general area, daily chart just kind of ranging in between that 220 along with that 188. If we can see that break above, you can see rejected once again here. But as for AMD coming back up and towards this area, we do have this gap back towards the upside. This was over the weekend. We can see this trade back up and towards that 240. If we reject off this level once again, we're going to see a trade right back down in towards the middle of the range. So we can just draw this general area. 220 here on AMD, break above, continuation towards the upside, break back underneath, push back in between the middle of the range. Levels that we have coming into today here on AMD is going to be that 220, as you can see, multiple touches. So if you do want to see some upside here on AMD, we'd like to see upside above that 220 for continuation, above our pre-market highs, or now we like to see the base above our previous day highs, the drop first, and then a trade up in towards that 220. So this is what we have for AMD coming into market open. Downside potential kind of pop and fade off that 220, we can see a push back down in towards that previous day highs, which is that 218. All right, let's go on to Apple. So Apple here on the daily time frame consolidating. Nice kind of buyer stepping in here off the level of support, 245. Now the key level here for AMD is just going to be that 255. As you can see, touch here, multiple touches for Apple. If you do want to see a flip back towards the upside, need it above this 255. Strong candle close, we can see a push back towards the upside. If we reject off this 255, which is the top of the consolidation, a push back down in towards that 250 here is in play. So just mark out that 255 here on Apple if you're interested. As for Google and a lot of these other tickers, we're coming back up to retest the area essentially that we broke down from. So as you can see here for Google, push towards the downside, nice level of support. This is the area that we broke lower. So now we're coming back up for the retest off our key level of support. So we have really one scenario towards the upside and one scenario towards the downside. So we have two scenarios here. So for Google, if we reclaim back above, if the overall market wants to flip here as well, we can see a trade back up and towards our 310 here and above. If we have some bearish news that comes in with the overall market, then Google can see a rejection here off that 300 for a push back down in towards that 285. So that's the level that we have at least marked out on the daily time frame. If we're on the hourly time frame, this one leaning more towards the upside. This one's fairly bullish here on the hourly. But keep that in mind, our key level 294 here on the higher time frames. As for Microsoft and the rest of the tickers, Microsoft coming down into my key area, as I mentioned, this is a really solid spot for Microsoft. Really our higher time frame key level support. If we're looking at this previous level of resistance here as well, you can just kind of mark out this general area. Really solid area for Microsoft for a potential kind of bounce play back towards the upside for a move back up and towards our 400 and above. If we're looking at Microsoft coming into market open and moving forward key level, this is the area of consolidation or a previous level of support. Now you like to see the reaction here off that 385. If you can reclaim, push back towards the upside here is in play. If we reject, we can see a push back down in towards that 360 here. Meta, fairly similar thesis, right? Key level is going to be that 590. Previous level of support, you can see broke underneath it, came back up. Nice little rejection here on Wednesday. So coming back into today, similar thing. If it can get back above, reclaim, see a push back up and towards that 630. If we reject off this area on the higher time frames, we can see a push back down in towards that 560. Now with the other names that we do have, Amazon, nice period of consolidation here. Not really too much to talk about on this one, but has to get back above that 212 if you want to see any sort of continued pushback towards the upside. If we reject off this 212, a push down right in towards that 205 along with that 197 here is in play. And then as for Netflix, this is one of my favorite names that I talked about last week for some upside. Key levels that we had marked out on Netflix was our 95 along with our 100 key psych. Kind of drew out this downtrend that we had, plus our other level that we had to reclaim here as well. So as you can see, multiple touches. Once we finally broke back above, nice kind of trade back up and towards our 100 key psych. And as you can see, Netflix, overall markets, mini bounce, Netflix leader back towards the upside. So key levels that we have marked out here now is going to be that 100 key psych. Higher time frame key level, as you can see, all the way back from earlier of March. If you do want to see some upside, Netflix is going to be one of the main names to keep an eye out for. Right now, we could be looking for continuation above our previous day highs, above our 100 key psych level here as well. So we can keep an eye out on Netflix above your pre-market high here is in play for continuation. Or even if it dropped all the way back down in towards that previous day highs, this can be an area that we can keep an eye out for. So that's what we have for Netflix. This is one of my favorite names for continuation here coming into market open. It's almost 8:40 here as well. So I'll go over a couple more names fairly quickly. MU, kind of nice bounce off the lows. Key levels that we have, if you're looking at this one on the weekly time frame, right, try breaking underneath this key level support. So as you can see, MU Nice rejection here off the all-time highs, which was expected. Came back down in towards a key level support, but you can see nice kind of buyer stepping in. Huge lower wick that's being printed. Body candle closed back inside of this range here on the weekly time frame, that 360. So now for MU, we like to see it kind of trade back up and towards the middle of the range, 400 here on MU. So if you go back into the daily time frame, key levels that we have marked out is going to be really that 370. This is the area that we broke down from. You can see on Wednesday, nice little rejection here as well, but now gapping up. So for MU, maintain above that 370, push back up and towards our 400 is in play. If we break back underneath, then we can see a flip back under on MU. But this one, as I mentioned, on the daily time frame, buyers are stepping in. Weekly time frame, look at this strong weekly candle close, right? Especially these names, especially all the memory names have been fairly strong. SNDK still holding up fairly nicely. This one, of course, a little bit more bullish than MU, but higher lows are being built. Reclaim back above our previous all-time highs. We can now see a trade back up and towards our all-time highs here, our 780 here on the higher time frames. SNDK maintain above our 700, continuation back up and towards that 770. Intel, one of my favorite names as well. This one, nice kind of bounce right off our key level of support. Took a little bit longer, but overall markets bounce. That's why these ones bounce here as well. But you can see weekly time frame right in towards our key level of resistance. Strong weekly candle close, lower wick, strong weekly candle close. Now we like to see Intel gravitate up and towards our high that we created here for this year, our yearly highs. So keep an eye on Intel. This one, structure being built fairly nicely. Should see a move up and towards our, not our all-time highs, but our gap fill that we created here and our potentially 55 on Intel. And then other names, right? WDC, nice bounce, all-time highs here is in play. So really semis are leading the markets back towards the upside. So the game plan coming into market open here today, what we're going to keep an eye out on coming to this morning at least. As I mentioned, we do have some red folder news. The main thing is going to be later today, right? With President Trump speaking. We do have some ISM, which is at 10 a.m. But coming to market open, intraday leaning more bullish, right above our previous day highs on the Qs, SPY, right around our previous day highs here as well. So what I'd like to see for the SPY coming to market open is the break back above our previous day highs for continuation. And then for the Qs, I'd like to see it now maintain above our 588 or above our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. One thing to keep in mind is that the Qs is more bullish than the SPY chart, which is a good sign for some upside here. So let's keep an eye out on the major indices above our previous day highs coming to market open and essentially the reaction that we have off that level. As for my main watches coming to market open, what I'm going to keep an eye out on today is going to be NVIDIA above our previous day highs. Hold above that level for a push towards the upside. AMD hit the top of the range, which is our higher time frame level. What I like to see is previous day high hold for this continuation towards the upside. If we are looking for longs, really just all the semiconductors, right? NVIDIA, AMD, right? Some memory names, SNDK, MU still looks strong. Intel looks good for a push towards the upside here as well. As for names that are showing a little bit more weakness, so if the market does want to reject off that previous day highs, I'm going to keep an eye out on Tesla, really the weakest ticker, especially on on Thursday of last week. I'm going to keep an eye out on Tesla now underneath our pre-market lows for a push down in towards that previous day lows, or now it would be kind of the rejection here off that previous day highs. Other names that we can keep an eye out for, really Tesla is like the weakest ticker. So if we do want to see some downside, we can keep an eye out on Tesla. Besides that, I am going to keep an eye out on all the major semiconductors along with some memory names for continuation higher. Yeah, that's about it. So that is it for me today. As I mentioned, right, keep an eye out on President Trump speaking later today, right? That's going to be the main thing. So be a little bit more hands off, right, coming into market open unless we have a super clear trend coming to today, because Trump is going to have a major decision later today. And of course, within the next few days, hopefully we'll get some more clear guidance on what to expect and to see if the war is going to come to an end with the peace talks. So that's what we have coming into today. I'm going to get ready for market open here now. If you guys did enjoy that, As I mentioned, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. If you guys are interested in the accelerator anniversary sale that we have coming up, that is also in the description below. That is a waitlist that you guys can join for that. But yeah, that is going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.